Hey everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. In this episode, I have got a terrific designer with me. You've seen him featured in some of the work that I've been doing on After Hours over our Instagram, on our Facebook, even in the quilt behind me. This is one of his that I pieced together. And I'm super excited to have him on. He has a terrific eye for color and design, and it is such an honor to bring him on to Corey's Cast. So without further ado, I am going to bring on Julius. Let's bring him right in. Hey, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited for this.
Of course, no, this is going to be so much fun. And I kind of want people to get to know a little bit more of you because every time I talk about, oh, this is, a quote that I'm working on from Julius, they're like, okay, who's Julius? Hear me talking about you over and over.
I
And
love it. Thank
over,
you so much for doing that too, because that's so great.
Of course, yeah, they just want to know a little bit more about you. So if you could introduce yourself to the listeners and the watchers, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Julius Rempey Knight from Julius Handmade, and you can find me at juliushandmade.com. And I create foundation paper piecing patterns for quilts. I currently live in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I have 3 dogs. I live with my husband, and I've been designing quilts for about 8 years now. But I did take a little bit of a break, so I'm excited to kind of share with you my journey through designing and quilting in general.
That's awesome. So you've been working, kind of around these paper piecing designs, these foundation paper piecing designs for, like you said, about 8 years. Talk to me about how you first started designing, because I've always been interested in the design process. I've tried a few times myself. Not for me. I'd rather I'd rather piece other people's patterns. But I'd really like to know, and I think the listeners would like to know how you got into designing and kind of how it's gotten you to this point right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, 8 years ago is when I started quilting, and I made 2 just very basic quilts using half square triangles, nothing crazy. And then I found a pattern for a unicorn online, and I was like, how is this quilting? And found out it was foundation paper piecing. Had never done it before, but kind of just jumped right in with the piecing of it. I found some YouTube videos on how to foundation paper piece, got my pattern, made a bunch of mistakes. It was a fun process. So after I completed that unicorn, I was like, you know what, this is what I want. I loved that level of detail you can get with foundation paper piecing. I loved I loved the whole process. It felt so much more uh, fun for me over
Yeah.
traditional piecing. So, of course, being me, I I jump in head first in whatever I do. So I just jumped in. I said, I'm going to design some of my own patterns. And so I looked online for like different software that people were using. And at the time, I only had a Mac computer. So I found EQ8, and that's kind of where I started designing. And this actually is the first block that I
Oh,
ever
look at the
designed.
panda.
This is my panda face, and I absolutely love that. And then I did some different iterations of it. I had one that had a rainbow eye and ear on one side, which was really fun. But that's my very first pattern, and it's what like I fell in love with foundation paper piecing and designing after I created that. And from there, I just kind of kept exploring different designs that I could come up with.
Yeah. So, I remember seeing your panda on display when we came up to visit you, and we'll talk about that a little bit
Mhm.
later, today. But I wanna know, was there any particular point in this, kind of overall moment or project that you did that you realized that designing was your true passion? That, like, that's where you wanted to go, was to create this huge, amazing library of all these incredible FPP patterns?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I was designing patterns for about, I'd say, 5 years or so, but not really releasing anything. I had a little Etsy shop, and I maybe had less than 10
Okay.
patterns on it that were all just very small blocks. So they were like 12 by 12 blocks or something like that. And I had a couple of people that would ask for specific blocks. So I do like some custom designs
Mhm.
for people. And then like I ended up just doing like I joined a quilt guild. I lived in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and really fell in love with the quilt guild. I was doing a lot of charity quilting and things like that. I had a long arm at the time, so I was doing a lot of long arming for people, and kind of put designing off to the side a little bit. And then moved to Oklahoma, had to sell my long arm, was super bummed, and took about a 2 year long break from any kind of quilting.
Oh,
And yeah, so it was really interesting because I actually went on a meditation retreat, and it was 10 days where you're basically meditating for 10 hours a day. And I had this massive, like, creative inspiration. And I came home from that and immediately started designing. And I designed um, my lion that has a rainbow mane.
uh-huh.
That was the first, like, one that I created. And that was actually just February of last year. And as soon as I designed that, I was like, okay, I'm back in my flow. I'm feeling good. That this is what I need to be doing. This is what I'm meant to be doing. And kind of from there, that's where after that point, almost all of the patterns that you see on my Etsy and on my website are all from last year. That's where like my huge creative burst came from with foundation paper piecing
Wow.
patterns.
10 hours a day meditating. I can barely focus 10 hours a
It
day
was
working,
intense.
let alone meditating. Wow.
It was crazy, but I'm so grateful for it because that creative inspiration is what I
Right.
needed. I needed that to kind of
That's
push through.
awesome. I just you see, I don't even know if I even knew that. Golly, I need to do better.
I
Um, but, that's incredible. I do wanna pivot. I wanna talk about how we met. I think this is a funny story. I think people get a kick out of it. I'm gonna give a little overall context, and then I want you to kinda give your idea inside of it because we were 2 random strangers that came to visit you, basically. So for those of you that have been watching me for a while, you know that Brooke Veal and I hang out a lot. And she stumbled across Julius's Instagram. I think she had been following you for a while, if I'm not mistaken.
think so.
And you had posted that you were going to have a exhibit in Tulsa. And she commented that it added me basically. And she said, Corey, we have to go. And I said, okay, say less, road trip. I don't know the guy. Sure, let's do it. I don't know. And we were kind of conversing back and forth over Instagram throughout the process. And she looked at me while we were driving up there and she said, he has no idea who we are or why we're just showing up randomly. He might think we're there to kill him. I don't know. And I want to know from your point of view, like, what was that like having people reach out to you so excited to come and see your exhibit of these incredible quilts that you had put together and now we've become amazing friends?
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, so I went into that whole show like not really expecting anything out of it.
Yeah.
And when Brooke reached out to me and was like, "I want to come," like I was like, "I will meet you there." I would absolutely love. To me, it was just exciting to have like people wanting to see what I was doing and
Right.
creating because I had never done anything like that before. So the fact that you guys were willing to drive up from the Dallas area, like I was shocked. I was like, why would I was like, I hope I don't disappoint. Like I hope it's not like this, like it's not worth it. So I didn't even actually really think about like, oh, these are two strangers. I was like, these people want to see my work. I need to go and meet them so that I can kind of like show them and talk to them about it.
I mean, we
For
were in a public place, so that's good.
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, it was a lot of fun. I'm so grateful that you guys came up for that. And we got to meet, have lunch afterwards, which was really fun, and just hang out. Because my quilting community is all online. I only recently, well, actually 2 weeks ago, joined a quilt guild where I am.
Mhm.
Outside of that, like it's been online. So for one, like I'm super grateful that you guys were following me and decided to come up. And then two, I feel like now like having an in-person meeting where now I know people like physically, not
Right.
just online, has been really, really great. And I'm super grateful that we've all become such close friends. I love it.
It has been super duper fun. I think one of the funnest parts that I had of that whole trip, and it's not to pat myself on the back, but it was when we were sitting at lunch and it finally clicked in your head who I was. I thought that was very interesting. Brooke still talks about it to this day. She's like, "You should have seen his face."
I
Um,
I was shocked. So again, I had no idea like who you were. I now
right.
so let me make it clear. I've watched like I've seen Linda's and
Yeah.
I buy from Linda's and uh I've seen your videos and I didn't put two and two together until until like we were there and I was like, wait a minute, because like I know like when I went down to Dallas and I met you, I saw the unicorn quilt in the shop that you had quilted. And I was like, I remember watching that video years ago. Uh, and that's kind of like I don't know. It's so funny how things just kind of like clicked into place. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was quite the experience to say. But yeah, for us, we drove up to Tulsa. I think it was like a 3.5, 4 hour drive.
Yeah,
And Brooke and
much
I on a
better.
road trip is a riot to begin with, so that was fun. But getting there, being immersed in all of your designs firsthand, really got sparked my interest more because Brooke had really introduced me into paper piecing.
Mhm.
But seeing all of your incredible designs and the way you use your colors and the way you use your fabrics and the way it all comes together really changed my outlook on piecing, let alone foundation paper piecing. Because I don't know about everyone that's listening, but when I first started piecing, I started on a FPP pattern, and I found some videos online, and it was like looking back, it didn't make any sense at all, and it's still in a cabinet in my closet because I decided it's not for me, and I let it go, and I jumped into
Mhm.
quilting. But now when I can sit down and work through your patterns, especially like the one that I have behind me that I did, it was just they're so amazing. And the way you
Thank you.
think about things is incredible. Like your brain works really, really cool.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, and on that same kind of idea and that tangent of quilt patterns, where do you draw your inspiration from on these patterns? Because you've got, you got the Buddha, you've got the wings, you've got the merman, and many others. Where does that inspiration initially start, and where does it kind of come from?
So it comes from everywhere. Honestly, I can't like pinpoint a single point. Some of
Yeah.
them are, hey, Julius, you should create a merman pattern. And I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. So then I start kind of figuring out what I want that to look like. Sometimes like with my Buddha, I'm a very spiritual person. Like I said, I went on 10-day retreat and all. And so for me, that was just kind of I need to have this for my meditation space.
Yeah.
Well, and the wings, I had the wings started um like 4 or 5 years ago when I was really big into quilting and designing.
Hmm.
But I hadn't really gone anywhere with it and it kind of just sat. So as I was designing, especially for that show that I was doing, I was bringing up some old patterns as well that I had started and never really finished because I with the bigger quilts, the more complicated quilts,
Hmm.
sometimes I struggle myself with how these lines should work and having the bigger pieces and things like that. But then after this meditation retreat and coming back and like really finding my groove with my quilt patterns again and my creativity,
Right.
it all kind of clicked a little bit better, and I was able to do it no problem. Like I was able to just get it done and whip it out, and it's been great. Like honestly, wherever I can find inspiration. So sometimes I'll see things online, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. How can I turn this into a pattern? And it's kind of gotten to the point now where if I see an image, I'm like thinking of like, okay, how am I going to section that up so that I can create a pattern? And it's really cool to think about.
Yeah, I have the same kind of idea and flow when it comes to quilting. I'll
Mhm.
see different forms. Like I use carpeting, like in hotels or on cruise ships or when we travel. Those carpet designs you can get some really cool quilt patterns from. So while I'm walking, when I should be looking forward, ahead,
Mhm.
I'm looking down at the ground, trying to figure out how am I going to draw that out to come up with my next thing. So I totally see where you're coming from. Are there any like specific maybe art forms or designers or architecture or different things like that that you're drawn more to, or is it just kind of an overall view, whatever, just whatever clicks?
Honestly, whatever clicks. Like
Yeah.
I am the kind of person that can find like inspiration really anywhere.
Mhm.
Uh, and I love seeing what other people are doing. But for me, I feel like my style is more um, eclectic, I guess.
Okay.
I like to do all kinds of different things. So like sometimes maybe like a pet portrait. I'm working on some of my dogs now, but then other times something like super abstract. Um, like that's really fun for me.
Yeah.
I did a stained glass window quilt, and that was really fun. So it's like really just all kinds of different, I guess, creative inspiration. Like it just comes from everywhere. I can't really pinpoint, but I do love when people give me suggestions because then I can kind of take that suggestion and run with it a little bit and make it my own.
Right.
So like I said, like the merman was one that I never even thought of really doing a merman, and I actually created two patterns. And the person that had asked about it was like, "Oh, that's not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for like a chubbier merman, not like a muscly one." So then I set that merman aside and did the chubby rainbow merman, and that honestly, I'm so grateful that I did that because that really I feel like connected with a lot of people. So
Yeah.
I think that's the point of what I do too, is I want people to have a connection to what I'm making, but also um, feel free to make it their own. Like I love to see people making my patterns and using different colors, using different, fabrics, using, doing whatever they want to it because that's their quilt. I want them to be happy with it.
Yeah.
And for me, I love seeing, other people's creative processes as well.
I think that's why you and I we click so well, that eclectic side of your brain. You're doing things that people haven't done. You're using that base knowledge of FPP
Hmm.
and putting your own Julius spin on it
Yeah.
and creating it with such bold, vivid colors that really draw and attract people into the design. Even if it's not something that they're 100% like, that's
Hmm.
what I'm going to do, they're still going to be drawn into it to learn how it was done,
Yeah.
which
Using
I think is
color,
really cool.
color for me is like so important. I love a rainbow. This is my, actually, let me go
Oh,
this way.
hold on.
This is my logo here. You can't really see it. Let me see if I get up. But, it's a big J and it uses every color of the rainbow. And I love rainbow colors, especially like in rainbow order. So
Yeah.
you will see a lot of rainbow in my pieces, but that does not mean that you have to do rainbow as well. Again, I like to see different colorways, different fabrics, things like that. So, but I just, for me personally, it makes me happy. So I do a
Yeah.
lot of rainbows in my projects.
No, the colors definitely are, that do make you happy. I think it's you talk about wanting people to kind of put their own spin on it as well as you have put your own spin on it. I'm going to zoom out a little bit on the camera for everyone to see the wings behind me. So this is a maybe by the time you listen to it, it might not be a new pattern, but it currently is a new pattern from Julius that he had me test. And while I was working through the design elements of this quilt, I was reaching out to him over and over again because he kind of just gave me the overall, this is what you're going to be making, and here are the pieces. And I said, okay, well, I need a color chart since you're going to tell me exactly what to put where. And he went, okay, I'll give you the overall view, but I think you should just do your own thing. And I started working through the process that you provided. And about the third unit, I was like, no, I'm doing this the way I want to do it. And it's not that the way you did it was bad. It's just I wanted to put my own spin on it.
It's your quilt. You should. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and I like that you push that creativity for others as well, because sometimes people can be locked into just doing exactly what the design tells them to do,
Mhm.
but pushing that boundary and taking it a little bit of a step further, I think makes people, what's the word? Gravitate towards it a little bit more
Mhm.
and, have more fun with it at that point.
Yeah.
So, when we're talking about designs and patterns as well, I know some of this stuff that I'm about to ask you might be a little proprietary, so you're feel free to tiptoe around it.
Okay.
But myself and my listeners, we're nosy. Let's be honest, we all are. We'd like to know a little bit more about your kind of overall design process from inspiration to execution of the design. Like, how does that work?
Okay. So yeah. So the inspiration we kind of just talked about, I can get
Right.
it from anywhere. I do like to use AI a lot to kind of create a base kind of image or like
Mhm.
something that is going to be the like inspiration of my piece.
Okay.
So like for example, the Buddha. I would look for inspiration on different Buddha images and then kind of use AI to say, okay, I need something that's more geometric because geometric shapes are a lot easier to create a foundation paper piecing pattern with. And then I go and I use either EQ8, which is Electric Quilt 8, which is really great for creating patterns in and designs, but also Quilt Assistant, which is a really good program for being completely free. So Quilt Assistant, definitely recommend if you're looking for a free option for design. And then I just go in and I start designing. So it does take a lot of practice. So like I said, I've been doing this for a while, and I've created several patterns. And it does take practice because you actually have to manually draw all of your lines, and you have to make sure your lines connect in a certain way in order for the
Ooh.
pattern to work. And so
Okay.
there's nothing like automatic about creating a pattern, right? It's definitely very much a manual process. And my patterns go through several iterations before I'm like, okay, this is the pattern. This is it. I'm happy with it.
Right.
Because there's always little tweaks that have to be made, because you have to have like I said, your lines have to be in a very specific order in order for it to work. And then I like to test my own patterns.
Okay.
So I'll actually sew up my patterns, and that's a lot of what you see on like my Instagram, my website, Facebook, things like that. Those are just tester pieces for my patterns, and then I have to write them up and give the instructions, because also there's no program that's going to tell you how to piece or what order to piece your stuff in.
That'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That'd be a dream. Uh, yeah, you have to. It's a very manual process.
Yeah.
There's no shortcut around it. Uh, and I kind of like that, though. I like that it's a little bit manual, because then I feel like I'm the one creating it. It's not, oh, here's a computer generated pattern. Because
Right.
even like the images if that I use as inspiration, uh, most often you can't just like trace the image and it's good. Like you have to make it your own because of the way that foundation paper piecing is done. So it's kind of cool. I like the process. I like that I can kind of add my creative spin to it. Um, but that's kind of like the overview. So I do want to mention, if you're interested, anybody out there that wants to learn how to do foundation paper piecing patterns, like how to create them, I do offer classes. So over on
Oh,
my website, you can actually sign up for a 4-week long um, paper piecing pattern design workshop. And I'll actually teach you using Quilt Assistant. So using that free program that you can download on your computer. So it's pretty
okay.
cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just about to ask. So for those of you, or for those of us that, myself included, that would like to learn a little bit more about how to do that manual work, can you break down that 4-week process a little bit for us? How does that work? Is it just kind of like an initial, this is kind of what I want to do, and we just work daily, weekly? How does that work?
So it's a weekly class.
Okay.
So right now I have one scheduled for March of this year, and it will be every Tuesday night. We'll meet, and I have it broken down by like, I guess, different design elements. So the
Okay.
first week is going to be the overview of Quilt Assistant and how to draw lines. And we'll do and every week we do sample blocks together. So you'll be actually on your computer doing it as I do it on mine, and I'm sharing my screen. And then you will. So that's the first week, and then the second week we are going to talk about coloring, because Quilt Assistant has some interesting color features for coloring in your pattern. And then we'll also talk about creating curves with foundation paper piecing, because that's a very different
Ooh,
process. You're
yeah,
not
yeah,
actually
yeah.
creating a curve. You're using straight lines to give an illusion of a curve. So we go through and we create patterns using curves. And then the third week, we are talking about sectioning. So that's the part that I think most people have trouble with, is how am I going to create all my little paper template sections so that I can piece them together.
Right.
So we talk about that, and then we do some more um, sample projects, like combining straight lines, curves, like, and creating an actual design. And then the fourth week we have our like how to write up a pattern, how to print, how to all of that kind of stuff within EQ and even outside of EQ, or not EQ, sorry, Quilt Assistant. And we will also do like an intro to more advanced pattern creation. And after you are done with this class, you'll have the basics, so you'll be able to go in and create some designs for sure. But then I'll also offer an advanced class as well,
Oh,
to
awesome.
do some more of the big, like, advanced pieces.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
So,
Sold.
I mean,
That
it's super
sounds
fun.
cool.
We have a good time. It's very laid back and casual. I encourage participation, so questions and ideas and things like that throughout the class. But it's a fun time, and you'll come out uh, knowing a lot more about how to create a foundation paper piecing pattern for sure.
That's awesome. So I'm assuming pricing and, information, all that stuff is available on your website,
Yeah,
which is juliushandmade.com.
juliushandmade.com. You can go there. I have a whole section just for classes, and where you can sign up and all of that stuff. So.
Awesome. That's super duper cool. So, as we're talking about designing patterns and then offering these courses and different things like that, is there something that is makes a pattern like quintessential Julius? Like it makes it a unique Julius staple that I can look at a pattern and say, that's a Julius handmade pattern.
I try to make my patterns very cohesive, but as I'm like growing within my journey, my patterns do change. So I'm actually also going back and redoing a lot of the patterns that I've already done because I want them to have the same kind of overall feel. Um, I like to have a lot of images on my patterns. I like to have a lot of color. I like to have but okay, so I have a lot of images in color and everything is, this is how I designed it. But I also offer a coloring page so that people can color in the pattern themselves, like using colored pencils and see what it would look like with their colorway. As far as design, I actually get a lot that people are like, I saw this pattern and I knew it was yours immediately. Like I saw the quilt
Mhm.
and I don't know what people are seeing. If it could just be that I use a lot of color. I think that
Yeah.
that's kind of a like, and you'll see a lot of rainbow in rainbow order. But I do get a lot of people that are like, I saw this, somebody created this quilt the other day and I knew that it was your pattern. And I'm like, I guess it's a bit better question to ask like the audience. Like when you see my quilts, what about it is telling you, okay, this is Julius's pattern? Because I'm surprised by the number of people that have said that to me.
I definitely would agree with those that have already reached out to you in terms of use of color.
Yeah,
And the way the color kind of ombres rainbowy
of course.
down the
Yeah.
pattern or throughout the pattern. Because when I walked into that exhibit that you were doing, it was very evident as you looked around that that was kind of your signature.
Mhm.
And you could tell quite quickly, even if you weren't, you were coming in there as, someone just off the street, that the same designer made all of these. So I definitely think it's your use of color, but I'd be interested also to hear the viewers' comments below
Yeah, I
as
would
well,
too.
on
Absolutely.
kind of how it is and how it comes together. So you're talking about we're talking about those quintessential Julius designs and those ones that come together. I think this is a good point for you to do a quick plug on your block of the month club for those that are wanting to get a little bit more information on how you design, how you build your patterns, your overall pattern layout, because the amount of effort that you put into your pattern instructions alone,
Well,
d
thank you.
they're
Thank you.
stunning. I've got your block of the month up on my cube right behind the camera.
Well, thank you.
And having all of that information for free is incredible. So can you do a quick plug for us on the block of the month? Let's talk about
Absolutely.
it, walk them through how this process is going to work, and all of the fun details about it, because I'm super excited to do it. I think it's a much easier way to attack a quilt, especially when you're learning how to do FPP.
Yeah, so I am offering a completely free block of the month. So actually in January, I think January 1st, I launched my website. So I had just been doing everything through social media. So I
Mhm.
launched a website, and as a way to get people to my website, I'm offering a free block of the month club every month. I will be releasing a pattern on the first of the month, and I'm trying to be very um, oh my gosh, what's the word I'm looking for, strategic with how I'm creating my
Yeah,
blocks, because I want them to be accessible to new foundation paper piecers.
right.
All the blocks are 18 by 18 inches, and once you're done with the year, it'll be a full quilt. You can add sashing, borders, whatever to it. Um, but it's super exciting. So I have the first block, and I actually have it somewhere here. Let's see.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, let me show you. This is the second one that I made. But of course, rainbow.
Ah,
I need to
I
show that
love
one
it.
off. So this is the January block. I'm currently working on testing. Sorry about that. I'm currently working on testing the February block, which is super cute and fun too. But yeah, so this is the first one. You can go on the first of the month. I am releasing the block. And then
Okay.
every 15th of the month, I am doing a live stream on, right now it's Facebook and Instagram, but it will also be on my website as well, where I actually sit and sew the block with you. So you can ask questions. You can be sitting and sewing with me at the same time. So this is actually the one that I did on the live, uh, and super fun. I had a really great time meeting new people and just chatting and answering a lot of questions. So definitely check that out. And I would recommend, if you go to my website, sign up for the mailing list, just so that each month when the new block is released, you'll get the reminder. You can go and download it. It's all just a downloadable PDF that you can
Mhm.
print at home and work on at your leisure. So there's no like time limit, right? You don't have to have January's block done before February if that's how you work, whatever. Um, but I feel like it's been a lot of fun just getting to meet new people and seeing people post my block on social media. I'm loving it, and I'm so happy to be able to offer this as a free block of the month. Um, a lot of people, are, like you said, are new to foundation paper piecing, and this is a great way to kind of take the little steps into learning how to create a quilt. And by the end of the year, you'll have a big, beautiful quilt.
I feel, yeah, a full quilt to go with it. I think giving that access to the student or the customer of that the 15th where you're doing that live so along where you can answer questions. I think that would have helped me when I first started my paper piecing journey because I started with it wasn't a massive quilt. It was like a table runner size, but
Okay.
I didn't really have anywhere to go, and it was very intimidating when I first started. And then that's what it got put away into the cabinet. I never touched it again.
Yeah.
And I think you are doing something that others aren't doing, and so I'd like to commend you on that.
Thank you.
And
Appreciate
I think it's really, really cool that it's gonna turn into this massive quilt at the end of the year. And like you said, you don't have to finish January's block to participate in February. You're not checking the homework.
Right, exactly.
And
Do it at your leisure. I don't care if you do all the blocks in December or even next year. I know I see some people online like, oh, I'm starting my 2024 block of the month and it's already 2025. That's fine too. I'm just excited to get, my patterns out where people can, learn. And I still appreciate a lot of people came to my live on January 15th and they weren't sewing with me, but they just wanted to come and hang out and ask
yeah,
questions. Like you don't even have to be sewing, just come and hang out, and you can see kind of my process. The fun thing with paper piecing is that there's so many different techniques and ways that you can go about doing it. Like there's
uh-huh,
not just one, like, okay, you have to do it this way.
right,
So I share my way that I do it, and I find it to be the easiest, but other people may not. So it's fun to see, like, how different people do paper piecing differently.
right, yeah. How you can attack this really cool art form so many different ways and not be
Exactly.
locked into a box when you're designing or creating or designing even,
Yes, exactly.
which is cool. Yeah. So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about future designs.
Okay.
So the one behind me, it will be a future design. Are there any others in the making that are almost done? Because I'm nosy. That people can get a real quick glimpse here on the podcast of something to look forward to on your website.
Yes, and so I'll send you an image of it because I'm super excited for this pattern. I've been like clawing to get to
Yeah.
testing it, and it's called Beneath the Northern Lights, and it is a polar bear quilt, and it's to me, I just think it's so beautiful, and I can't wait because I have all my
Yeah.
fabrics ready. I'm ready to sew, and actually, I'm going to live stream the entire process of
Oh, fun.
sewing it. So it's going to be another on my social media and my website where I'm live streaming the entire process of me from cutting out the papers to finishing the entire quilt. So be on the lookout for that. But that's going to be my next pattern. And then I also have So I'm a Leo. I love lions. Lions are very important to me, and I have some more lion quilts coming that I'm super excited
Yeah.
about as well. So I definitely I have a lineup of quilts that need to get out. I think my biggest thing is I like to test them all myself because I like having the quilt. I like the attention to detail that I put into
Yeah.
my sewing. But I think I need to start branching out and allowing other people to also test. So like you tested my angel wings and they came out so beautiful. Those are also coming out very soon. Um, so I need to give up some control, I think, and just let other people test because I want to get these patterns out to you guys. So I have a whole list of patterns that are coming out, and each one I'm ready to. I'm like chomping at the bit trying to get them
I
to
know. I
you.
am
So
so excited for that Beneath the Northern Lights pattern to come out. You gave us a quick glimpse of the packaging of it on your live on the 15th. I was walking around the grocery
yeah,
store. I wasn't quilting, but I was there. And I
I
saw that
appreciate
little
it.
glimpse of it. And I was like, oh
Yeah, I'll
my
send a picture so
gosh.
you can put
Yes.
somewhere
Yeah, I'll throw
on
it
the
in the screen.
screen because I love it. It's probably one of my favorite patterns that I've designed. I like the color. I like the like
Yeah.
vibe of it. I'm very big into
Yep.
like
Yep.
vibes, right? And it feels
Yeah,
good
I
to
love
me.
the use of
So,
color in it. I've already thought about some of the different fabrics that I wanna put. I've got some in my stash that are some of the, like, the Northern Lights
okay.
actually looking fabric, the Aurora
Yeah,
Borealis, all those different things, that I wanna
that'll be
implement?
beautiful.
Yeah, implement in it? Use in it? I don't know. Use in the pattern. So
Incorporate.
I'm
Yeah,
excited, to get that and to get working on it, so that's gonna be exciting.
yeah,
I
that's so
have a
fun.
few more questions for you. I want to talk about any particular advice that you have to others that are looking to get into designing. You offer that 4-week course that I think everyone that wants to get into designing paper piecing patterns should definitely reach out to you and sign up for that. But initial advice for someone that needs to get over the hump or kind of get off the fence on wanting to design and just pull the trigger and do it and get in and kind of make their visions a reality.
So honestly, it's just that just go
Yeah.
in and do it. So the one thing that I will say is have patience and have some grace with yourself that when you first start foundation paper piece designing, it's not as easy as, you know, one, two, three. There's definitely a learning curve, especially because if you're used to traditional piecing or even designing traditional pieced quilts, foundation paper piecing is very different, and you kind of have to retrain your brain to think of it a little bit differently. Um, and so it's to definitely like be patient with yourself. Start with more simple blocks. I know, like for me, I'm the kind of person that I'm going to jump in and I'm going to try to start with the most complex
Right.
thing that I can. And I learned early on that that'll drive you crazy because with paper piecing, there are rules that you have to follow in order for your piece to make sense. Now, there are a million different ways to to go about
Right.
those rules, but you still need it to have a certain logic to it. So start with something simple. I always start with a like if when I'm teaching, I always start with a simple star. I feel like that is the easiest pattern that you can create, but also uses a lot of the different techniques. Um, so that would be my biggest advice is be patient and know that you're learning something new and it's going to take a little bit of time before it really like clicks. But there will be that moment where everything just like clicks and then you'll be like me and seeing, lines on every image that you that you see and how you're going to separate that into a foundation paper
That's
piecing
awesome. Thank you.
pattern.
Thank you for that advice. I'm sure that's gonna help, a lot of people. It's good advice that everyone needs to hear that wants to get started.
But if you Yeah, and if you want to jump in, if you're someone like me and want to jump in, again, my classes will give you the basics of those rules that
Mhm.
I was talking about, and uh, that's going to help a lot, I think, with being able to just jump in and do some of the more crazy
Well,
complex things.
you've got that basics class, which is great, and then you mentioned earlier that you do offer advanced classes as well. Yeah.
Yes, I will be. I'll be offering advanced classes as well to make some like more advanced. So if you see my quilts, like my hummingbird quilt, my Buddha quilt, those are pretty advanced quilts. They're bigger, a lot more sections, a lot more manual sectioning. So having the basics there is great, but having a little bit of help with the more advanced stuff, I think is it's helpful. It's not always necessary, but for those that learn by watching somebody do it and also doing it
Mhm.
yourself, because again, in my classes, you'll be actually creating the patterns along with me on your computer. I think it's just helpful. That's how I learn best. So that's
No,
what
that's
I'm
awesome.
offering.
No, I definitely agree. It's the same way that I think majority of quilters learn best is watching and doing to
Yeah,
kind of solidify it and lock it into your brain
exactly.
to be able to feel confident in those skills that you're learning, which is super duper great.
For sure.
Well, Julius, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Learned a little bit more about you as a friend, but then I'm sure everyone learned a ton more about you as a amazing designer.
Well,
And
thank
one
you.
more quick plug for your website if you want to let people know how they can find you, how they can follow you, and how they can stay up to date with everything going on with you.
Yeah. So juliushandmade.com. I'm going to have classes offered there. I'm going to have all my patterns there. My block of the month is there. Uh, Again, completely free. So check that out. I'm also creating a forum so that we can create a little foundation paper piecing community. You guys will be able to post your projects that you're working there or ask questions and kind of build a computer or a community that's outside of maybe social media. But you
Yeah.
can find me on social media as well. So on Instagram, it's at Julius Handmade. And then I do have a Facebook page, which is actually at Julius Handmade Crafts. I guess Julius Handmade was taken, unfortunately, but that's all right. And so follow me, on social media as well. If you go to my website, sign up for the mailing list because you don't want to miss any of the new things that I have coming out. And if for nothing else, get a reminder that my block of the month block is out. So hopefully, I'll get to meet a lot of you. You join my live streams. Uh, I love connecting with people, so I'm super excited for this new journey. Again, my website's brand new, so it's not completely like how it's going to be. It's still a work in progress, but
Right.
I'm happy with the direction it's going for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast. I really, really appreciate you taking some time out of your day
Thank you.
and
This is great.
talking more with us. So I will see you next time.
All righty. Thanks so much. Take
See
care.
ya. Well, guys, that was an incredible episode of Corey's Cast here as we talked with Julius from Julius Handmade, looking a little bit more into those incredible patterns and his design process. He's very open about how to create those designs, and I love to hear that he will be offering design classes on his website. So I have been linking it on the screen, but one more time, it is juliushandmade.com where you can go and learn more about him, all of his designs. Thank you so much for listening today at Corey's Cast. Make sure you are subscribing to the YouTube channel or following us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, or Apple Music. I'll see you next time. Bye.